In 1 Corinthians, we read, "Food will not commend us to God. We are no worse off if we do not eat, and no better off if we do. But take care that this right of yours does not somehow become a stumbling block to the weak. For if anyone sees you who have knowledge eating in an idol's temple, will he not be encouraged, if his conscience is weak, to eat food offered to idols? And so by your knowledge this weak person is destroyed, the brother for whom Christ died. Thus, sinning against your brothers and wounding their conscience, when it is weak, you sin against Christ. Therefore, if food makes my brother stumble, I will never eat meat, lest I make my brother stumble. Am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord? Are not you my workmanship in the Lord? If to others I am not an apostle, at least I am to you. For you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord." So Paul takes on a question here that was a really big deal in his day, as there was many temples throughout all of the Middle East, all around the Mediterranean, a multitude of deities being worshipped, and commonly, and it was just a normal thing at that time, animals would be brought in and sacrificed to these deities, and instead of wasting the meat would be sold or given to local butchers who would in turn prepare that meat for the general population to consume. So Christians, knowing that this was going on, had this question of, is it okay for Christians to eat this meat that has been set aside, sanctified, you could say, to these false deities? And Paul's response, he uses this specific issue as a touch point for a really bigger foundational issue, that of the impact of our actions upon others. So as Christianity was rising in popularity, as more and more people were embracing the Christian faith, becoming followers of Jesus Christ, they were shifting away from this worldview of, if you were Jewish, i.e. part of the people of God, there were certain foods you could not eat. And this 40-year period or so was a very difficult transition time. Paul needed to get people who were embracing Christ as the Messiah to understand that it doesn't matter what food you eat. There were those who were strong in their faith that understood this, that understood that these deities were not gods at all. They were just demons disguised as deities that had been worshipped for centuries or millennia, however long. And their taking on this label was really irrelevant. It had no actual impact upon the food itself. But there were those who were weak in their faith, who had probably come out of some of those faiths, and still in their minds they associated that meat with those deities, and for them it would have been a point of stumbling. So Paul speaks very clearly. He says, if eating food makes my brother stumble, I will never eat meat, lest I make my brother stumble. So the overall point is that we need to be attentive to and understand how our actions can influence other people. So in this case, it's eating meat sacrificed to false gods. When he starts speaking of this passage, he says, "Food will not commend us to God, nor will the not eating of food." So, which is really a poetic way of saying it doesn't really matter what you eat. The old covenant way of thinking about food is gone. God has created all food to be consumed, and we don't want to resort back to old covenant thinking, because in doing so we are in essence rejecting what Christ accomplished for mankind. Paul closes the passage with, "Am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord?" So Paul is bringing up this distinction between, yes, we have the freedom to do whatever we want, but we don't have the right to do whatever we want. There's a big difference. Because we are creatures created by God with a free will, yeah, we can choose to do anything. But that sort of mindset is not the mindset that the Christian should have. Our thoughts, words, and actions must be built upon the foundation of love. So we should be loving God, loving our neighbor, and pursuing holiness. So if anything we are doing is causing someone else to stumble or to fall into sin, then we are not acting in love. Paul appeals to his apostleship as a way of showing that what he is teaching them is in line with what Christ taught the other apostles and him in the decades before. So we do have the right to eat and drink whatever we want. We do have the right, we do have the freedom to do, think, and say whatever we want. But instead of saying, oh, I want to do this, therefore I am going to, we should be asking ourselves, if I am doing this thing, is this moving me towards holiness? Is this going to be an example that might cause someone else to move away from their pursuit of holiness? Is it going to help someone? Is it going to hinder someone? Is this going to help me? Or is this going to make me weaker in my faith?